everybody. Welcome to our next series in our Digital Lifeboat webinars. Today's webinar is going to be discussing how we can leverage technology in a crisis. It's a real pleasure to introduce to you this morning our guests. Firstly, I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Peter Hughes, who is a psychologist and also the co-founder of Cognition. Peter will shortly be introducing us to Erin Marshall, who is, works for a technology firm called Procensol, and we're delighted to welcome Erin too. So welcome this morning. We're going to run it as a discussion this morning, and I'm pleased to hand over to Peter. Peter.
Yeah, thanks very much, John. Appreciate it, and good morning, everybody. This is an interview I'll be doing with Erin Marshall, who's the head of automation practice at a remarkable business called Procensol, and I'll tell you shortly what makes them remarkable and in my view quite unique in the area of digital transformation. But first we've got to look at what we mean by digital transformation, and you can see there's a definition there by Gartner, and which is as good as any. I mean, there are so many various definitions of what digital transformation consists. People bandy the term around without really having any anchor for what it means. In very basic terms, as Gartner say here, it's really about a process of creating robust new digital models of doing business by exploiting digital technologies. What are those technologies? Well, we'll be talking about a few of them this morning, like RPA, or robotic process automation, BPM, business process management. Of course, there's artificial intelligence, machine learning, virtual reality, augmented reality. There's a plethora of technologies that are changing the way that we think, feel, and act in business. And the question, I guess, that we're all asking right now is why is now a good time? Why is now, in the middle of a crisis, the type of crisis that we really haven't seen in a generation? Why is now the time to undertake any form of technological or digital transformation? And that's the question I'll be asking Erin. And I think you may be surprised at some of the reasons that he comes up with, and why now really is a good time to be reevaluating business processes. But here's a word of warning, and you will see from the next slide that the failure rate in digital transformation projects varies. Some people put it below 65%, but I think that is an optimism. But typically, most of the research assesses failure rate at between 65 and to over 90%. Firstly, what do we mean by failure rate? Well, this can be either where the digital transformation or the process of implementing digital technologies doesn't deliver what was promised, or it leads to a decline in team and staff morale, or indeed very often a combination of both. And all of you, I think, listening to this webinar this morning, watching this webinar this morning, will understand how painful the process of software implementation can be. Somebody comes into your business and say, we'll fix a process. It could be a process in finance. It could be a process in sales. It could be a process in marketing. It could be a process in customer service. Somebody comes along and says, we'll fix that, and we'll do it in this time frame, and we'll do it for roughly this amount of budget. The time frame is very often vague. The budget is even more vague. What tends to happen, given one of the many biases that infect our decision making and our judgment, we tend to be overly optimistic in what can be achieved. So very often timescales overrun, budgets overrun, and the end is anything from a mildly dissatisfied customer to a raging customer. And what I find remarkable about Procensol, and what I'll be talking to Erin about, is how they have managed not only to make significant changes in processes for businesses of all shapes and sizes, from large corporations right down to very small privately owned businesses, and to do it within a fixed time frame of less than 8 weeks, and to do it for a fixed fee. This to me is when I first heard of it, it seemed to me quite remarkable. And having seen it in action, I I was so impressed, which is why really at Cognition we decided to ask Erin in to chat to us this morning. But one of the things we struggle to deal with really, as you can see from the next slide, is the pace of change. This is the Martech 500, which is really a look at the landscape of marketing technology. And literally over the last, this was to April 2018, the one to 2019 looks exactly the same, but just a little bit more dense with the solutions that are available. About 7,000 new marketing technologies have emerged since 2011. Just think about that for a moment. 7,000 technologies in marketing alone, let alone what we're going to be talking about this morning, which is RPA and BPM. So it is an enormously complex and difficult landscape for us to navigate. But as you'll see from what Steve Jobs said, he said technology, he said, is nothing. And that really is something you should bear in mind when thinking about the current crisis. The current crisis is one, gives us an enormous opportunity to reevaluate all our processes. But crucially, it gets us the opportunity to reevaluate the relationship between technology, the processes they are meant to solve and to streamline, and the people who have to use it. It's this balance between people and technology that Steve Jobs is referring to then. Technology, he said, is nothing. It's interesting that Bill Gates, obviously Jobs' his great rival, said, he said, the first rule, he said, of any technology, he said, is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. Automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. And we're not just talking here about technological inefficiency, we're talking about a massive psychological and financial toll. Psychological toll it takes on the people who have to work with this technology, and the financial toll on the business as a whole. Because it's not technology that drives outcomes, it's people. It's people that drive outcomes. And the first thing you have to do before trying to implement any kind of new technology is to be very precise in what that technology has to deliver. Give your teams learning time, phase the implementation. And this is the crucial point. Focus on the minimum that technology or that software or that platform has to deliver. Complexity should always emerge out of simplicity. If you begin by overscoping a project, trying to do too much too soon, you create complexity from which you will never be able to get simplicity and a workable outcome. So those are the challenges really that any business faces, even in good times, about implementing technology and understanding in practice how to make digital transformation work. But in difficult times like this, when we are facing challenges, the like of which we have never faced before, now really is the time to look at your business processes, to look at how you can rethink what your business is, rethink the technology stack you use, rethink the way you organize your operational processes, and above all, rethink the relationship between the technology in your business and the teams who have to use it. Only yesterday, I was speaking to a client who was taking this moment to do exactly that. She'd made a decision right now, while she was in lockdown with her team, to reevaluate how the business functions and works. And now I'm going to hand over to, or start interviewing and chatting to Erin Marshall, who's the head of automation practice at Procensol. And like I said, Procensol are truly a remarkable organization in their ability to combine business process management and robotic process automation. And Erin will explain these in simple terms in a moment. To deliver efficient, streamlined business processes, any business process, fix any business process within 8 weeks. And that's what I'm going to be challenging him on now. So good morning, Erin. How are you doing? Good?
Good morning, Peter. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm going to start with a very question I suppose everybody's asking. Why is now? Why is the middle of a crisis the best time to review your business processes?
Well, I think at the moment, a lot of people are obviously having to work remotely and start to, I guess, have less operational tasks that they would be doing, a lot more time to start thinking strategically about their business. So that in itself is a great chance to start to look at the processes and how they work. Now, realistically, this is going to be something where people are going to have a lot of challenges, not only what they're dealing with at the moment, but when they actually start to return to normality, if we can call it that, on the other side of this crisis. But everybody needs to be thinking about efficiencies and making sure that they hit the ground running. For that, there's a lot of things people can start to do now, and a lot of things that we're trying to help people with, trying to help people understand their process.
What specifically, Aaron, can they do? You say there's a lot of things they can do now. What specifically can they do?
So one of the things that we do, one of the things we try to do, if it was an in-person thing, obviously we have workshops and meetings with people to help people understand their processes, look at how they can make those efficiency savings that are going to result in changes to their bottom line, but ultimately, especially in a crisis like this, make sure that when they come out the other side of this, they're in the best shape to do it. One of the things as a technology company that we've done for a long time is things like working remotely, things like being able to do meetings remotely, but we can do these workshops remotely. But there's a lot of things that we can do now with the technologies that we use to help people to understand this and specifically start to look at the workshops, start to look at these technologies, see them in action, and actually start to build these things out now, start to make those savings and those efficiency savings right now.
Okay, well, what technologies do you use? I mentioned in the introduction you use business process management, robotic process automation. That would mean something to some people, but to a lot of people, it won't mean very much at all. In very simple terms, what does that mean?
And to be fair, that's most people. The names don't help, especially when it comes to robotic process automation. I think it sort of creates this idea of robots and manufacturing and everything else, where it is actually all software based. So from our perspective, we've been working with a BPM tool called Appian for 12 years now. We've been partners with Appian. BPM is a low-code environment that is a platform, again, try not to use too technology terms, but it's a platform which allows rapid deployment of applications, but also unification of things together. I guess anybody would traditionally think of something like software development, if they were looking at digital transformation and looking at trying to make have technology allow them to improve their processes, they would look at developing software and have visions of people writing lines and lines of code. Things like low-code platforms allow you to have a single platform license for everybody to automate, to put those processes on in front of people, like case management, to be able to see everything in front of you, a single view of information that might stretch across a lot of different legacy applications. People might have old spreadsheets or old databases, old pieces of software they use. This is a mobile-enabled, quick application that allows people to rapidly deploy this and scale with it as well.
So if you had to summarize, say, two, three, or four key benefits that the technologies that you work with can deliver, what would they be in very simple commercial terms?
Well, I think that was, I talked a little bit about BPM there, but talking about RPA, that is something that I think is perhaps more simple to be able to look at a return on investment on quickly. Robotic process automation is something that is essentially, like, the best way to think about it in simple terms is a digital worker, like somebody else sat in your team, an intern, if you like. It's going to actually perform a task on a PC. So anything a human can do, as long as it's rules-based and structured data, so it might be going through a spreadsheet, or it might be working on an email box or something like that, it's going to be able to do that very, very rapidly. So you're looking at immediate cost savings, because you can quantify that in FTE, full-time equivalent. So it's not something that's going to take away a job from a human. It's augmenting that workforce, if you like.
What type of work would the digital worker do? So say, for instance, let's look at two areas of a business. Let's look at finance on the one hand and service on the other.
Sure.
What specifically would the digital worker do that would be an improvement on current processes and current ways of working?
Okay, so to take those two examples, if you're looking at the finance side of things, finance is a great example, because that's talking about structured data. This is invoices, accounts packages, lots of numbers, lots of spreadsheets, lots of things like that. From a digital worker perspective, in that case, your digital worker could be consuming spreadsheets, for example, of a classic example is raising invoices. You may have had a person who sat there, and a vast part of their job might have been getting an email with a spreadsheet full of invoices to raise, manually going into the accounting software and raising those invoices, sending them off, perhaps writing a report on that. That's probably a part of their job they really dislike, and it's monotonous and time consuming and takes away from some of the other real creative things they could be doing. A digital worker could do that automatically, and you would see it working on the screen as well. So it's, like I say, a recent one of our customers has actually named the bot, personalized it, if you like, and I really like that, because as far as they're concerned, it is the intern. They give the simple tasks to the intern to do, they monitor it, and if there's anything it can't do, that's where they pick it up and carry on. So that, when you look at it, and as I say, you can quantify that in FTE, in full-time equivalent, you can say, we just saved 80% of a person's job there that the bot is doing for a much less license. And you know, you don't want to look at that as saying we don't need that guy anymore. He's just got 80% of more of his time to be able to do another job or help out with other areas of that. And that's what we see with our customers, is they look at this as a growth opportunity without having to employ people. But the way I see this now is it's potentially more about the cost savings people have to make in the current climate. You know, to be able to say, we don't want to lose people, but we also have all this work we need to do, or we need to be able to be more efficient. Now is the time to be able to start to think, how can we do that? How can we leverage technology? But as you mentioned yourself, the only way you can do that is by having a solid process underneath that. And that's the other part of the package we bring to the table, is experience in that.
Okay, so if you were looking at a business that's going to come out of this crisis, maybe let's assume we're out of lockdown in, I don't know, end of May, and then we've still got social distancing for a period of time, then we might go back into lockdown. How can what you do help a business emerge from the crisis stronger than they were before they went in?
Sure. So again, referencing a little bit of some of the quotes that you had there, at the moment when people try and adopt digital transformation or try and look at the technology, you know, I talked about BPM and RPA as a technology stack that we use and we're experts in. But to get that right, you need to start to look at the process side of things and make sure that those elements are correct. Now, in our experience, you know, a lot of the work we've done in recent times, these were technologies that were only available to large enterprises. And large enterprises traditionally have business analysts and a lot of people that focus on the efficiency of processes. And even in those environments, we still come across quite a lot of the time poor and inefficient processes. And we help to use our experience to be able to make them more efficient. When you look at the SME market, the work that we've done recently is things like our some of the packages that we've got are around trying to enable them, and in being licensed resellers ourselves, we're able to try and package our consultancy with the license fees for a fixed fee to be able to deliver that. But what we found, and again, examples is going into smaller businesses, they don't have the resources to look at their processes with any kind of in-depth capability and experience. So we often find that we help them to understand that and actually leave that skill set with them, as well as the technology skill set, for them to be able to do that. And to sort of bring that back into your original question, right now, that I think that ability to start to examine processes, we can run remote workshops to help people understand those processes, to help them build it out and ultimately translate that into digital transformation.
So if I came to you today, say as a small, medium-sized business turning over, I don't know, 2 million, 5 million, 6 million pounds, 10 million pounds, something in that bracket, you could help me today to reevaluate my processes. And what would you do? Would you put in some kind of timeline, an 8-week timeline? Because I find this 8 weeks thing remarkable. You put an 8-week timeline once the project is scoped to implement that?
So yeah, so I mean, the platforms we use, both robotic process automation and low-code BPM tools, they're geared towards agility and geared towards rapid deployment. We actually, this isn't something we try to cut corners on to try and shoehorn it into 8 weeks, and it's in our literature. That's what we say is within 8 weeks or less. We package up that software and the expertise and the consultancy, but this isn't something that we're trying to scrimp on any kind of quality. This is what we deliver normally. We would deliver in these things. The little soundbite is from idea to app in 8 weeks, and that's really is the concept, is that you're looking at.
Say that again. Idea to app in 8 weeks.
Yeah, it's a term that is used for this sort of stuff with low code, and not only I think it's the idea of low code and this concept that it's something that, you know, if we were to showcase this, and again, this is part of the service offering, we can speak to potential clients. We can show them all of this. There's no commitment before we start to be able to demonstrate it.
Me, two questions really. If you come to me as a potential client, would you take me through the process step by step? And if so, what would those steps be? Secondly, would you be able to show me what the ROI would be in advance? So could you tell me in advance what the ROI would be?
Sure. So, the first part of that, with regards to how we look at helping people out, is running these workshops to help them discover that. But as I say, it's helping them to build the right project and select the right process, but also scoping that out and using our experience that, again, is potentially more enterprise level, to help people understand, and specifically now in this crisis, to help them understand their processes, where they can make efficiency savings, where we can help them with technology to make them a much more efficient model, ready to land on the other side of this, or operate right now. But talking about ROI, I think specifically RPA, as I say, I've never come across a technology where there's a more tangible ROI in that. And this is because
you've never come across a technology, did you say, with more tangible ROI? Sorry? Did you say you'd never come across a technology with more tangible ROI? Because
you can really talk about this. We have calculators that we can use for this, for specifically automation stuff, where we can sit down and doing that process discovery workshop, start to look at specific processes, help to identify which are suitable for automation and suitable for digital transformation, but really quantify that in saying, right, you're looking at an idea to app in 8 weeks, and in our Transform 2 product, we're guaranteeing that we select the right process, we can deliver that in 8 weeks.
So if I want to change a process in finance or service or operations, you can do that within 8 weeks. You will scope out, you'll ask me, I presume, what problem do I want to solve? And I'll say, okay, I've got a problem in the finance, or I've got a problem in service, or I've got a problem in sales. I want to solve those process problems. And you can do that within weeks.
Absolutely.
What if I say to you, Erin, on top of that I actually want to reinvent my business? I'm in lockdown. I've just a real opportunity to reinvent how my business looks. Can you help with that?
Absolutely. So, this is, again, I can't stress enough the idea of this package, this product, Transform 2, which is what we offer, and the thing we're referencing with 8 weeks. This isn't just a fire and forget thing. We don't like to work with our customers to help them solve one problem and then walk off into the distance. This is something we want to make relationships with customers and help them and support them throughout. And this package it's not just 8 weeks and see you later. This is support, ongoing support on that application to help you with it. But both of these tools, RPA, or both of these technologies, RPA with Automation Anywhere and BPM low code with Appia, they are scalable, brilliantly scalable. And again, as far as technology goes, incredibly scalable for that sense. So we're able to say,
scalable in what way? How would that work? How would the scalability work?
Sure. So this is, you consider this, and the way we look at it is, this is the 8-week program is an initial one. It's an initial program because this solution, let's say it solves a problem in finance, and we built, maybe it's some sort of invoicing application, or any suitable process. The platform that you're using and you've licensed to do that, it's usable on other things as well. So the idea with this is you unify. We have when we do presentations and workshops with people, that a slide that we have shows a lot of different things all over the place. It shows somebody over here is sending something to someone in a spreadsheet with an email. Somebody's logging into an old CRM system. Somebody's accessing a database. Somebody writes something down and passes it to somebody. Really inefficient processes. And when you use something like Appian, or you have what we refer to as a single view of customer or a single view of information, you can get all that information out of those old legacy applications, or take away the manual processes and show that in one single screen to everybody. With that, you can dovetail that with the automation side, so it's able to start to make efficiency savings on that front. But once you've done your 8 weeks on this, you could do another 8 weeks on something else, but you're using the same software. So you don't have to start looking at different development, different software. This is infinitely scalable like that.
What would you say to the skeptics? Okay, I gave the stats in advance of the pain that businesses go through, particularly SMEs go through, in implementing changing processes, implementing new software, going through any process of digital transformation, however large or small it might be. And they felt that pain, that real business pain. How can you reassure them that what you do is actually different? That you will do it in 8 weeks, you will do it for a fixed fee, you will succeed?
Well, to start with, it's guaranteed. So, from that sense, it's something that, we're hanging our hat on. We're not just saying this is something that we hope we'll do in 8 weeks. And furthermore, the first thing that we do is we demonstrate this technology to people. We show how easy it is to use it and how user-friendly it is. We also help to build that out. I think the missing piece of the jigsaw with this, we talked about digital transformation, and as I say, it is very much two things, and often got the wrong way around. People look at the digital transformation as trying to leverage a technology stack without thinking about the transform part of it. And that's what we're trying to do, is help people to understand that. But that's the very first part of it. We're not just saying, tell us your problem, and then we'll go off into the distance and come back again, and you'll have a solution for you. We're working with people from the very first step to help them to understand it, to scope out a project that will have an 8-week timeline, to show them that, to help them understand that. But as I said, there's transferable experience and skills in this, where people, especially at smaller companies, I've worked with companies where you go in there and you say, right, this is the process you want me to automate, fantastic, or to build a platform for. Tell me about it. They tell you about it. They can't show you a flow chart or documentation on it, because they don't have that. But what we do is we help them to do that and deliver that. And I think very early on in that process, before it's even a commitment to it, I think we can demonstrate quite clearly to people how we can help in the experience we have, and some examples of that in action.
Yeah, that's really impressive, because every business wants, as you're saying, a single view of the truth, which they can share across the organization. When you go into a business, say an SME, say it employs between, I don't know, 20 and 80 people for the sake of argument, do you just work with the board of directors, or do you make sure that all the teams know what they're doing? Do you make sure that's communicated through to all teams? Is it done holistically in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, I'll call on a recent example where initially, when you're talking about anything like this, strategic projects, you are, of course, talking to sort of senior management and board of directors people usually. And from my experience, and again, the recent example is having one meeting, sat around with all of the directors of the company, explaining the benefits of this from a financial point of view, from an operational efficiency point of view, is a very different language to the next meeting I had, which was with the team that actually delivered it. And there's a big fear factor, I think, around specifically automation, in that it's going to take people's jobs. This is the robots are going to do all of this. It's going to be driverless cars and everything else. And one of the things that I like to help is a bit of hearts and minds in that, because we as a company don't like to just sort of deal with that top level and then deliver it. And as I say, walk off. We want to try and work with the shop floor as well, because you need that buy-in. Digital transformation fails often because it doesn't have the buy-in at all levels. And we work with those people on the shop floor to reassure them and make them realize that they are as important as anybody in this. It's just taking away the monotony of what they do on a day-to-day basis, but it still can't do the things that they do, which is make decisions on edge cases, or make big creative decisions and things. It frees them up to do that. And as I said, I quite enjoy this, because I saw the transformation between a team of people who were intimidated by technology and thinking it was going to be something that was going to be taking over their jobs bad, to the people who've actually named the bot as Pedro, as they did, and they humanized this bot, and it does do the work virtually, but it's still doing that. So they refer to him as that, and they see him as a part of their team now. And I think that's a very good example of how we can try and help all levels of the company to embrace the new technology and remove one of the biggest stumbling blocks for digital transformation.
I think that's right, and I think the word you use there is a really good one, actually. I mean, people are intimidated. They're intimidated very often by any digital transformation process in two ways. One, fear for their jobs, fear for what it might do to their working lives. And obviously, secondly, fearful of the process itself. So from your point of view, you can actually manage both of those from what you're saying quite easily.
Yeah, look, Procensol as a company is a very agile company. It's been built up over the last 12 years by a team of owners and directors that have handpicked and selected the people that work for the company. And I think that, from my experience over the last 6 years working with them, everybody is a very nice person, a very friendly person, a very human person. There's no sort of people that are squirreled away as not facing clients. Most of the company is client facing, the vast majority. And from everyone I've worked with, we take a lot of pride and a lot of benefit from actually working with the people and helping people to understand. We often try to create centres of excellence in companies we work in, and I myself, and I know my colleagues have mentored people whilst on site, and we're all the kind of people in the company that really enjoy that part of it, and that helps when you start to try and blend the technical elements and try and explain that and help people to carry on after you left. We are a consultancy. We do support people after we go, obviously, but you want to empower people to be able to embrace that technology and continue to utilize it on their own. And that, I think, is as much a part of the job as trying to go in there and sell something.
I think that's right. And speaking now, just as a psychologist, the more ownership anybody has of anything, doesn't matter any aspect of their lives, the more control and ownership they have of it, the more they are likely to embrace it. And the more it will help them grow as people, as well as helping, in this case, the business grow as a business, or the technology to become more functional. I think ownership and control is crucial. And one of the key reasons I think that digital transformation projects fail is through lack of ownership and people feeling they have no control, no say in it, no influence in it. And for SMEs, when you're dealing with small, tight-knit teams of people, I think it's crucial, absolutely crucial, that ownership takes place. So how would I begin then? So if today I think this sounds great, how do I start?
Well, this is, to sort of reference the current crisis and where we are right now, a lot of companies have had to learn to be flexible with remote working. And I'm sure we've all had a lot of meetings where we've got these little boxes on our screen. But this is one of the powers of what we do. So as I said, we are perfectly placed to help people remotely, to have a meeting like this with whoever in the company wants to learn more about it.
So I could contact you today and you'd say, okay, we'd set up a Skype call, a Zoom call, whatever it is, a Microsoft Teams call. We'd set up a video call, yeah?
Yeah, so we'd set up a video call, something like this. In fact, very similar to this. We would be able to do anything that we would do in person. If it was normal circumstances, we may travel and sit in an office and present this on a screen, on a projector. But this is just as powerful to be able to actually see each other and engage while showing that. We would do a demonstration initially to show the power of these. It's all going to be talking about these being market-leading platforms and the efficiency they can deliver. But when you actually start to see the things in action and the workable examples, it really hits home how these are really beneficial. So that initial engagement is to talk about that, talk about how we can help, talk about the technologies we use. But that will rapidly go on to a similar sort of thing where we would remotely offer help with workshops to understand their processes and really help them help them to build a business case for this, to understand that they're going to actually, the savings.
So you would ask me, if I was a potential client, you'd say, okay, show me the process you're trying to solve, show me the problems, and you would then come back with a solution. How long would it take you to come back with that?
I think very quickly, but I think just to take a little step back, I wouldn't say to you, tell me the problem you want us to solve and we'll tell you how to solve it. I would say, tell us all the problems that you have, and we'll help you to understand how to solve those, and also which ones are more suitable and what we could leverage. But we would be able to turn that around very quickly, because we would sit there and we would discuss those with you in a workshop. It wouldn't be you need to go away and map your process for us. As I said, with a lot of our smaller customers, and as part of the work that we've been doing over the last year or so to try and help those SMEs, part of that is helping them to map the processes too. Again, examples of people where you don't have the business analyst creating this, so we don't expect someone at your company to turn around to us and say, here's this process that I've mapped in this big flowchart. Can you automate this for us, or can you build us a case management solution, or adopt this process in 8 weeks? Often with smaller companies, it's a case of trying to help people to understand what their processes are, help them to map them. And oftentimes when you're doing that, people can actually start to see efficiency savings they can make themselves, because that's operational stuff. It's not digital transformation, that's transformation. We can add the digital part to that, obviously, by helping to leverage technology. But realistically, until people start to actually understand how they can view their processes, and again, examples of companies where they just put you in front of the people that do the job and say, well, this is how we do it. We click this button and we do that. When you actually start to help them to understand it, they start to say, well, we can map other processes out. And they start to do that internally, like maybe larger companies do. And that, again, empowers them to start to deliver efficiency saving outside of technology. But obviously, it's right for the picking to be able to do the technology part as well.
That's great. Well, that's been really interesting for me. And I hope it's been interesting here for all the participants in this webinar to understand that technology and these type of process transformations can be done quickly. They don't have to be intimidating, and they can get ownership and buy-in, I think, across an organization. It's what's always impressed me about Procensol. I've never seen anything like it, and certainly nothing that works as efficiently, particularly in the SME market, in the small and mid-market business market space. I think it's quite unique, and I think that my final comment really is that first is to thank you, Erin, for your participation today, but also to say that I think if anybody's considering or thinking about how they can come out of this crisis stronger, you know, having seen you at work and seen you work with your clients, I think that the first thing you need to do is to give Erin a call, get in touch with Procensol, and just talk to them, because you know, I've seen this stuff in action, and it truly is remarkable. If you want to come out of this crisis stronger, get in touch with Procensol, and the details will be John will go through the details with you at the end of this session. Thank you very much indeed, Erin. I'll hand back to John.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you, Erin. That was great. I just want to conclude by telling you about next week's seminar. We've got the fourth and final webinar in this particular series, which is around the Digital Lifeboat series. And next week, we'll be delighted to be joined by Aidan Cassidy from HubSpot. We really think it's going to be an unmissable webinar for either people that are invested in HubSpot currently and want to really see how they can apply it in the current remote situation, but also for those interested in trying to leverage a technology platform for going after sales and marketing remotely. And I think it really is a practical and terrific tool, and something that should be really valuable. So join us next Thursday, the 23rd of April at 11 a.m. I'd like to reiterate my thanks to Peter, and specifically to Erin, and just to direct you to our agency, Cognition agency. Join us for a virtual coffee, get in touch with us, we'd love to help you. And also Procensol, would ask you to reach out to Procensol too, and follow up the really excellent work that they can provide. And we'd love you to join us for a coffee break anytime. Take care, have a good week, keep safe, thank you, bye-bye.